aitah for refusing to be a stepdad to my fiance's kids. I never thought betrayal could look like love. Not until it wore a wedding ring and smiled at me across a kitchen table. That smile used to mean everything. Now it just feels like a lie I kept feeding, one spoonful at a time, because I wanted to believe in us. But here I am, on the verge of losing the woman I thought I'd spend my life with. Because I told her the truth, I can't and won't be a stepfather to her kids. The proposal that changed everything when I met Emily 3 years ago. She was a storm disguised as calm. A single mother of 2, Daniel 10 and Sophie 7. She carried her past like armor. She told me on our second date, if you're looking for simple, I'm not it. I told her I didn't need simple, I just needed real. And for a long time, it was real. We built something that looked solid. Dinners together, weekend trips, family photos that could have fooled anyone, even me. But there was always distance. Her kids didn't like me much, and I didn't blame them. I was the stranger sitting at their table, trying to fill the space their father left behind. A man they still called daddy even though had vanished years ago. The cracks begin to show at first. I told myself it would take time. That eventually, Daniel would stop glaring at me when I sat next to his mom. And Sophie would stop crying every time I picked her up from school instead of her grandfather. But time didn't fix anything. It just revealed what was already there. Emily would say, "You have to be patient. They've been through a lot." And I was. For 2 years, I was patient. I helped with homework. I paid for school trips. I took them to the park, to the doctor, to birthdays. And still, they never called me anything but Alex. Just Alex. The betrayal then came the night everything cracked. We were out at dinner with her family. It was one of those welcome to the family evenings, laughter, wine, too much small talk. Her mother, a sharp-tongued woman with too much perfume, raised her glass and said, "To Alex, the best stepfather those kids could ever have." Everyone clinked glasses, except me. I froze, because Emily and I hadn't even discussed that yet. We weren't married. I hadn't agreed to that role. Not officially. Not emotionally. Later that night, I asked her about it. "Why did you let her say that?" I asked. "You could have corrected her." She just looked at me like I'd said something cruel. "Alex, we're getting married. What else would you be? Their stepfather, but only if they want me to be. I'm not trying to replace anyone." She sighed. "You're not replacing anyone. You're becoming someone. That's the difference." But it didn't feel like a difference. It felt like a trap. The secret I wasn't supposed to find. A few weeks later, I came home early. Emily was out with Sophie, and Daniel was in the living room playing on his tablet. When I went to plug in my phone, I noticed her laptop open on the kitchen counter. Emails, and one caught my subject, Ray. Court papers. I didn't want to snoop, but my gut wouldn't let me walk away. I clicked. It was an email chain between her and her ex-husband, Mar. He was asking to see the kids again. Had been sober for a year, got a job, wanted to reconnect. And Emily's reply, "Not until Alex adopts them. You've had your chance." I froze. Adopt them? She had never said a word to me about adoption. Not once. When she came home, I confronted her. "What is this?" I asked, holding up her laptop. Her face drained of color. "You weren't supposed to see that. You were planning to have me adopt your kids without telling me." She tried to spin it. "I was going to talk to you. I just needed to know where we stood before Mark started manipulating everyone again." But I wasn't hearing it. "That's not your decision to make alone, Emily. You don't get to turn me into their father by paperwork." The line I couldn't cross. We didn't speak for days. When we finally did, it wasn't really a conversation. It was an autopsy. She accused me of not loving her kids. I accused her of trying to use me to erase her past. "I've done everything for them," I said, "but I can't keep pretending I'm someone I'm not. They don't want me as a father, and I'm done forcing it." Her voice cracked. "Then what are we even doing, Alex? We're trying to build a family that doesn't want to exist." The fallout. She moved out 2 weeks later. Took the kids, took her things, left behind a note on the fridge. "You were supposed to be different. You were supposed to stay." For a while, I blamed myself. For not trying harder, for not loving them more, for not being the kind of man who could blend into someone else's story. But then, late one night, I got a text from Daniel. Just one sentence. "Thank you for not pretending." And that's when it hit me. Maybe love isn't always about filling empty spaces. Sometimes it's about refusing to take what is yours even when everyone expects you to. Part V. The reflection. It's been 7 months since the breakup. I still see Emily sometimes in passing, at the grocery store, at mutual friends' events. She looks happy, or at least like someone trying to be. I don't know if she's back with Mark or not. Part of me doesn't want to know, because the truth is, I loved her. But love doesn't justify manipulation, and maybe that's the betrayal no one talks about. When someone tries to make you love on their terms, and then calls you heartless for refusing. So, aitah for refusing to be a stepfather to my fiance's kids. Maybe not. But I know this much. It's better to walk away from a life built on guilt than to stay in one built on lies. Part E. The truth. She tried to bury it. Had been over a year since Emily walked out of my life. I told myself I'd moved on, that I'd left the ghosts where they belong. But ghosts don't stay buried just because you close your eyes. Sometimes they find new voices. And in my case, that voice came from a text message from Daniel. Daniel, "Hey Alex, can we talk? It's important." I stared at the screen for a long time. His name felt strange there, familiar but heavy. Had been 11 the last time I saw him. Now he was almost 13. I didn't know what to expect. Still, I typed back, "Me. Of course. What's going on?" We met the next evening at a small diner just outside of town. He looked taller, older, but tired. There was something in his eyes I recognized all too well, that quiet kind of sadness you only get when you've grown up in someone else's shadow. He didn't order anything. He just sat there, fidgeting with a soda straw, before finally blurting out, "Mom said you never wanted us." It hit harder than I expected, like someone had cracked open an old one. "That's not true," I said quietly. "I wanted a life with all of you. I just didn't want to be forced into a role I wasn't ready for." He nodded slowly, like he already knew. "I figured. You did?" He looked down. "Yeah. I found something. At home." He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. A legal document, old, slightly crumpled. It was a petition for adoption. My name was on it, filed and signed. By Emily, but not by me. "She told me you refused to sign it," he said. "But that's not what this says." I scanned the page again, my heart racing. At the bottom, next to the line labeled adoptive parent, there was my signature. Except it wasn't mine. "She forged it," I whispered. Daniel looked up, eyes wide. "What does that mean?" "It means she wanted the court to think I agreed to something I didn't." He swallowed hard. "She said the judge was gonna approve it next month." But then everything fell apart. I sat back, the weight of it sinking in. All that time I thought I'd escaped manipulation, but it had just gone deeper. "Daniel, why are you telling me this now?" He hesitated. "Because she's in trouble." "What kind of trouble?" "Money. A lot of it." He told me everything. After she and I broke up, Emily quit her job. She started dating someone new, a man who, according to Daniel, had money but no patience. They moved into a bigger house. New cars, new clothes, everything shiny on the outside and falling apart inside. Then, 2 months ago, the man left, took his money, took his name off the lease. And that's when the letters started coming. Debt collectors, court warnings, and paid loans. Emily had borrowed thousands. In my name. I couldn't believe it at first. But Daniel had proof, screenshots from her emails, loan statements. Even messages where she'd pretended to be me. "She said she was doing it for us," he said quietly. "That you'd understand." "Understand what?" He looked away. "That she needed to protect us. That she was making sure we had a future." I felt the anger bubbling under my skin, but it wasn't just anger. It was grief, twisted and raw. The woman I once loved had forged my name, stolen my identity, and used me as a shield for her own collapse. And now her son, the boy who once couldn't stand me, was the one confessing it all. "Daniel, where is she now?" I asked. "Home. She's scared. She keeps saying someone's coming after her." I should have walked away. I should have said it wasn't my problem. But I couldn't, not after seeing the fear in his eyes. So I went. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The curtains drawn, the yard overgrown. When she opened the door, it was like staring at a ghost of my past, thinner, paler, but still with that same haunting beauty that once made me ignore every red flag. "Alex," she whispered, "you shouldn't be here." Daniel told me what happened. She stiffened. "He shouldn't have. You forged my signature." Her eyes flashed, guilt, then defiance. "You wouldn't have helped otherwise. You stole from me, Emily. You lied to me. Again, I did what I had to do. You don't understand what it's like to raise two kids alone. You had help. You just wanted control. She took a step closer, her voice trembling. You think I wanted this. You think I wanted to become the villain. You made yourself one. Then she said something you'll never forget. I did it because I was scared you'd leave, and then you did anyway. And for the first time, I saw it. The fear beneath the manipulation. The desperation behind the lies. She hadn't just wanted love. She had wanted ownership of it. She thought if she could bind me legally, through adoption, through debt, through obligation, then maybe I'd never walk away. But love built on fear isn't love. It's captivity. Daniel appeared in the hallway behind her, tears in his eyes. Mom, stop. She turned to him, her voice cracking. I did it for you. He shook his head. You did it for yourself. And in that moment, something broke, not between them, but within her. She sank to the floor, sobbing, whispering his name over and over like it was a prayer that no longer worked. I left that night without another word. 2 weeks later, she was arrested for identity fraud. I didn't press charges. Someone else did. Apparently, I wasn't the only person she'd borrowed from. Daniel and Sophie went to live with their grandparents. And me? I went back to silence. Part E, the echo of what was left sometimes. I still get letters from Daniel. Updates mostly. School, sports, life. He signs them your friend, Daniel. Never your son. Never your kid. And am grateful for that. Because the truth is, I wasn't their father. And maybe I never could have been. But I was something else. The only person who told them the truth, even when it hurt. A month ago, I got one more letter. It was short. One line written in shaky handwriting. You were the only real thing in her life. I read it twice, then folded it away in a drawer with the adoption papers, the ones that were never real, but somehow meant everything. Because in the end, betrayal doesn't always come from hatred. Sometimes it comes from love twisted too tightly, until it suffocates everything around it. So maybe I wasn't the villain for refusing to be their stepfather. Maybe I was the only one who saw the truth before it destroyed us all. And sometimes refusing to play the hero is the only way to survive someone else's story. Part E. The confession letter. It had been 3 years since Emily was arrested. 3 years since Daniel and Sophie went to live with their grandparents. 3 years since I finally closed the door on that chapter of my life. I thought I was done. I thought the betrayal, the manipulation, the lies had finally ended. But some stories aren't done until the people who started them decide they're finished. And Emily wasn't ready. The letter arrived one gray morning. No return address. Just my name scrawled in familiar handwriting that still carried that dangerous elegance I hadn't seen in years. I hesitated before opening it. Part of me wanted to toss it unread, bury the past where it belonged. But the rest of me, curiosity always wins. I unfolded the paper and the words hit like a thunderclap. Alex, if you're reading this, then you've moved on. Or at least you think you have. I'm writing because I owe you the truth about me, about them, about everything you think you know. My hands started shaking. I read on. I didn't forge the papers out of malice. At least, not at first. I did it because I was scared. Scared of losing you. Scared of losing control of the life I wanted, the life I believed I deserved. I wasn't thinking about Daniel or Sophie. I wasn't thinking about anyone but myself. And yes, I used you. You were my anchor, Alex. My way to hold everything together while I unraveled. Her words were clinical and cold, but beneath them I felt the tremor of desperation. Then the debts came. The loans, the bills, the threats. I panicked. I thought that if I could secure the adoption, even falsely, then somehow I could stabilize everything. Make it right. Make it look like I wasn't spiraling, that I wasn't failing. She paused. A paragraph break, like she needed time to gather courage to write what came next. You weren't the villain in my story. You were the only person who could have been real. The only person who could have seen me without judgment. And yet, I still betrayed you. And for that, I will never forgive myself. Then came the part that made my stomach drop. There's something I never told anyone. Something Daniel doesn't know, something Sophie doesn't know. Your refusal to adopt them saved their lives. I blinked. I read it again. The man I was with before you, the one who left with his money, He was dangerous. He had connections, people who would have tried to take them. He had files on us, on everything I owned. He knew I had been forging your signature. If I'd managed to finalize the adoption, he would have used it against me against them. I was buying their safety with your name. My chest tightened. I hadn't realized it at the time, but every lie, every manipulation, every desperate act she'd made had been about survival. I should have told you everything, but I couldn't. Not while I was free. Not while I was running from the consequences of my own mistakes. I can't undo the damage, Alex. I can't fix the past, but I can tell you the truth. The final paragraphs were almost unreadable, written in a shaking hand. I know you hate me. You should. But I want you to understand something. Refusing to be their stepfather wasn't rejection, it was protection. Yours, theirs, even mine. If you had said yes, the worst would have followed us into our lives. You have no idea how close it was. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect understanding. But I hope someday, when Daniel and Sophie are old enough, they will know that the only reason you weren't a villain was because you refused the role. I tried to force on you. I dropped the letter. The room was silent except for the hum of the morning traffic outside. I didn't cry, not yet, but I felt it. The weight of everything she'd done and everything I'd survived. For years, I had thought myself the victim, that Emily was the one who destroyed the family I could have had. Now I realized she almost destroyed it, yes. But it was her fear, not her hatred, that led me to walk away. And in walking away, I had saved more than I knew. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer. Not to hide it, not to forget it, but to keep it somewhere I could remember the truth. Because betrayal, I learned, isn't always what it seems. Sometimes it wears the mask of manipulation. Sometimes it looks like love. And sometimes, refusing to be part of someone else's story is the only way to protect everyone involved. Daniel still texts occasionally. Short messages, updates, light. And every time I think of that letter, and I know that walking away was never about selfishness. It was the only act of love I could give.